Hello everyone, this is Dr. Rahul Pandya and welcome to my channel. In today's tutorial, we are going to cover the research paper writing process in detail. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive the latest video notifications. In today's primer, we will cover the following crucial points which are essential in research and writing process. First and foremost, it is essential to identify the golden research problem. Next is to perform a literature review to gather more profound and broader knowledge of the relevant area. Some of the researchers prefer to write a review paper to get a grip on the research problem. Before we begin, it is essential to plan nicely so that the entire research becomes organized and smoother. Next, we will cover about the research paper writing process, identifying the scope of the paper to make sure that we supply adequate content. It is advisable to target a particular journal or a conference even before starting the research and writing to align our research and subsequent writing of the paper in line with the publisher's expectations. We will also cover how to frame the first draft of our research paper. We will cover about the title, authors, affiliations, and their orders. What is the role of the impactful abstract? How to frame the introduction with the relative literature. Then the core section of the paper is the main body, which will cover our research contributions, such as proposed model, methodology, or experimental studies. Then we will be discussing about the results, discussion, conclusion, future scope, references, and acknowledgement. Especially, we will cover the characteristics of the dull paper to help us identifying that the current article needs further enhancements. We will also focus covering on the revision of the first draft. Later, we will cover the submission to a journal or a conference, revise the paper as per the reviewer's comments, and frame the responses to the reviewers to increase the chances of our acceptance. And finally, what if it gets rejected? Before you enter into the writing process, you will have to ask yourself a few questions. Is it worth writing a research paper? Is your research problem satisfying the novelty factor? Can you think something that solves the fundamental problem and identify an unoccupied slot for publishing? Are there too many published papers already available on the same problem? What are the missing points and shortcomings of the published work? Can you work on overcoming those limitations and propose the enhanced solution? Don't start unless you have answered the questions. Rethink and plan well before you start the research work. Originality and novelty, both of them are essential in any research. Your work must be original rather than incremental. It should be longevity and it should create a long-lasting impact. Starting early in any new field can help you to beat the competition. If it is too late, and if there are too many papers available on the same problem, perhaps it is advisable to find another potential problem which is less crowded. Your problem statement should be focused around the principal research problem. Be as specific as possible. In objectives, define the clear goals and outcomes that you want to accomplish. Ideally, 3 to 5 objectives should be fine. Once you have identified the potential research problem statement, ask yourself a few more questions. Have I answered the main question? Does my research problem statement pass so what test? Does my research problem statement pass how and why test? What would be the impact of my research? What would be the size of my research? Does it address the principal problem and solve it for too many people? Once you have answered the above questions, the next critical phase of the research is planning. If you have a clear-cut plan about your research execution and paper writing, your research activities will go smoothly and you will be able to complete your research and writing both of them in time. Therefore, the planning phase is highly crucial stage for performing the research and publishing high quality research papers. It involves deep thinking about your research problem, execution of the research objectives, accomplishing the final goals, and shaping the structure of your paper. Once you have identified a topic or a problem statement that matches the scope of your assignment, you will have to allocate time for each activity. Allocate an appropriate period to spend performing the research, paper writing, and revision to enhance the writing quality. You can start with your research by exploring and studying the relevant literature sources. Understanding the expectations is highly important to keep your work in line with the expectations. Discuss with your supervisor and understand his or her expectations. Take a close look at the instructions which your research supervisor has given you and understand what is being asked of you. Sometimes identifying the target journals or conferences where you want to publish can certainly help you to understand the expected level of research quality and complexity standards which are expected by those publishers. You can align and perform your research activities matching those expected quality standards. When you start writing, you can start with few questions. You can ask yourself, when is your deadline? What is the goal of your assignment? What topics can you write about? And then you can plan the writing process accordingly. Literature review becomes very important in any research and paper writing. In the initial stage of the literature review, you can start by skimming the papers. You can go through the abstract, heading, and subheadings instead of going deeper and reading the entire paper. You may end up reading the papers that are not related to your problem. Therefore, the skimming process will help you to filter out the target papers which are related to your field and match them with your research problem. And then you can read a few relevant papers thoroughly to gather the deeper knowledge which are around your research problem. You can quickly read the introduction and conclusion to gather a high level of idea about any research paper. You can take a quick look at the charts and statistical tables. You can take a look at the references and then skim the body of the paper in the first round. Later, decide whether it is relevant to read further or not. During the implementation phase, you can explore various journal papers, books, and other reliable sources. Identify the unexplored area. Identify the gaps and highlight how you are going to contribute to cover those gaps. What further developments might be required to update that research? Take important notes and questions when reading the papers. Collect a broader picture and narrow down your focus to a specific segment. Digesting the existing research will substantially help you to formulate your arguments in the paper. Also, when executing the research items, retain the notes and the source details. That will assist you in citing them at the relevant segments when you are writing your research paper. There are three major phases of the research paper writing process. The first is structuring the research paper. The second is research paper writing, and third is validation and proofreading. The structure of the research paper includes title, affiliations, abstract, and the main body. The essential constituents of the main body of the paper are introduction, literature survey, contributions, methodologies, results, discussions, conclusion, future scope, and references. Before we get started in detail on writing the research papers, we will cover the characteristics of a good research paper. This will help us to understand and align our writing process, keeping these points in mind to accomplish a high quality of writing. You should frame your research paper that attempts to present the focused solutions to the specific research problem. The center of the research paper should be highly focused on your problem statement, presenting the in depth study of your research question. It should be original and innovative. In support of the problem statement, a variety of sources are analyzed and cited throughout the research paper at suitable spots. An excellent research paper should be framed with in depth writing, which requires detailed planning and sizable research contribution. When we start writing the research paper, to find a clear direction, it is very important to identify the scope of the paper. We should employ the focused approach, and the scope should stay around your problem statement. The research paper should be focused on presenting the specific methodologies and solutions to address the problem statement. Avoid fitting too much into one paper. If your work is vast, divide the content into multiple papers. That will give you the opportunity to publish multiple papers on the same problem statement, presenting various methodologies and solutions. When writing, maintain the expected quality standard, size, and level of complexity. An excellent paper must be framed with enhanced English and usage of the advanced vocabulary. The next important step is to decide on a journal or a conference where you want to publish. Identifying the target journal or a conference where you want to publish can help you to understand the expected level of research quality and complexity standard for those publishers. You can align your writing to match those expected quality standards. Study the scope of the journal or a conference which must be fitting with your research work. Look at the published papers in that journal or a conference. Maintain a similar expected quality standard during your research and reflect the same when writing a research paper. Think as reviewers think. Go for a peer review with your senior researchers, mentors, supervisors, and enhance the quality of the content and writing. Consequences of incorrect decisions would result in loss of time and failure to publish. If you want to learn more about finding an appropriate journal, we have created a video on journal finder tools for various publishers. Please feel free to visit our video on Journal Finder. The link is placed in the description. Creating such a tutorial takes a lot of effort. If you haven't liked the video so far, please like the video and share it with others. Many of the researcher targets journals with specific indices such as SCI, ESCI or Scopus. If you want more information about finding an index of a journal, please go through our video tutorial on Journal Index Finder. The link is placed in the description. If you are still watching this video, that means you are serious about your research work and publishing high quality of journal papers. We will be creating new videos on research process regularly. Please subscribe to our channel to get the latest notifications of the future videos. If you are a beginner and targeting to publish your first paper at a conference and do not know which conference you should go for, please go through our video on the conference calendar. The link is placed in the description. There you can find a suitable conference to publish your research. The next critical phase is outlining the structure of your research paper. You will have to organize your thoughts before you start writing. Before you commence writing the research paper, create a clear-cut outline of your paper. When structuring the outline, understand the information flow and ensure nothing is forgotten. In outline, you can note down what you plan to include in each section or subsection in your article. A structured outline enables you to organize your ideas and fit them in organized fashion in your paper without forgetting anything. Finally, you are ready to start writing your research paper. Many researchers prefer to start with the main body first and abstract, introduction, and a conclusion later once they have written the main body. Also consider the word count and the page limit for a given journal. That will help you to estimate how much do you want to cover in a single paper. Do not put everything in just one paper. You can publish multiple articles on the same research problem by supplying various methodologies and solutions in a segmented manner. When writing the first draft of your paper, transform your ideas into discussions and narrate them in detail. At this point, you are turning your primary ideas into arguments. They may not be perfectly formulated on the first attempt, but later, during the revision, you can improve them. Maintain the forward momentum. Write now and perfect later. Don't get hung up to any difficulties that you encounter. You may end up losing your momentum. You will have time to perfect your first draft later. Express yourself clearly. Try to write clearly and concisely. This is something that you can improve later. But it's also important that the things are clear to you when you come back to them. Be flexible. Don't be afraid to make adjustments to your planned structure as you write. The point of the creating the outline is to help you to shape the paper, but it doesn't have to be set in stone. Cite your sources at the suitable spots wherever they are relevant. If you quote or paraphrase the sources, you will have to cite them. You may want to perfect your citations later, but at least you can note down the author's name, year of publication, and the page number. Final formatting can be done later. Many online citation generators enable you to produce the citations automatically. Read, read, and read. Develop the habit of regular reading. When reading the research papers, selectively you can write some of the essential concepts in your own words. That will strengthen your first draft of the research paper. Get the habit of reading soft copies instead of hard copies of the papers. The pros of reading the soft copies are that you can highlight the important content through PDF editor. You can use the search feature using Control F to locate the specific items in the paper quickly. You can access the papers anywhere through your drive. Carrying the hard copies of hundreds of papers is not feasible. Go digital. Take notes as you read. Develop the system of highlighting and underlining, marking and paraphrasing the content which is most relevant. It is very important to identify the sources of help who can accelerate your research activities, writing process, and boost your paper quality. You may reach out to professors and other scholars working in the same field in your department. You can post your queries on social media research groups such as ResearchGate. You can also post your questions on other online Q&A portals where you can connect with active researchers. If you are using a specific software or hardware, you can post their support systems to resolve your questions and find out quickly what can be done and what cannot be done. You may also reach out to research paper writing tutors for their guidance. You can also identify model research papers from the top class journals and learn from them. Get the habit of reading the profile of other researchers. That will help you to boost your motivation and keep yourself on the productive track. Subscribe to the Google Scholars alerts of the other relevant researchers. Also, be active on the ResearchGate and follow the relevant researchers and their updates. That will help you to keep yourself updated about the latest research in the relevant field. The title is the most crucial part of your research paper. The title must reflect your entire work. It must be concise and impactful. When framing the title, remember that the less is always more. The precise length of any title is around 6 to 12 words. Never write a paragraph of 4 to 5 lines as a title. Next is to label the author and co-author's name of your research paper. Check their latest affiliations and update them accordingly. If there is a membership information, you may have to provide that, such as senior IEEE member after the relative author's name. You will have to format this information as per the publisher's predefined format. The next most important milestone of your writing is the abstract. Many of the time, the weaker abstract straight results in the rejection of the paper. It gives the first impression of your article. Many times, reviewers can measure the whole article based on the abstract. Therefore, be extra careful when framing the abstract. It must be crisp and impactful. It must produce a complete projection of your entire research work. You can write in brief about your contributions, methods, and algorithms. You can also produce your final result, finding, and outcomes and discuss them in terms of numbers. For an example, the proposed methodology or algorithm inferred a 12% of improvement over the existing method. Similarly, you can frame conclusive comments in very short. In the introduction, you can describe what your article is about. You can introduce the research problem accompanied by the key terms and ideas. You can brief why your work is important compared to the existing ones. Explain to the readers what novel insights you are offering. How will you make your arguments? Summarize a brief introduction to the existing research trend. What are the opportunities, limitations, and challenges in the targeted thirst area? The introduction should also contain a detailed literature survey about the other researchers have contributed in the last 3 to 5 years. Highlight and identify the gaps and explain why your research contribution is important. Convince the reader that your paper presents a novel and essential research contribution. Give a quick summary of the structure of your organization of rest of the paper, and the content of each section can be summarized in short. The core section of your research paper is the main body, where you can explain your research work in detail. You can create several sections and subsections, each covering a specific solution, methodology, experimental study, or algorithm addressing your problem. Make sure that the information is presented in a logical order, maintaining a continuous flow. Include all your pieces of evidences and arguments to support your research problem. You can create a system model with a comprehensive block diagram and detailed description of your solution to a specific research problem. Also create sections for methodologies and algorithms. If your study is focused on mathematics, present your mathematical models and theorems with proofs. If you have performed an experimental study, present experimental setups with block diagrams and pictures along with a detailed description. Thoroughly explain about your entire research work without any ambiguities. Use flowcharts, pseudocodes, figures, and tables to explain your research work, which will substantially improve research papers' writing quality. At the same time, it will help reviewers to understand your work and make a favorable decision. Moreover, using flowcharts, pseudocodes, figures, and tables will help readers to follow your research work and employ that in their study. First, decide the structure of each section and subsections. Here, you will have to decide what content you are going to include in each. Follow the structured outline which you have initially created. Keep your writing focused on the research problem statement. Write impactful headings for sections and subsections. A heading must concisely introduce the primary content of that section. An impactful topic heading enables the reader to recognize the direction promptly. Establish effective transitions between and within sections, subsections, and paragraphs. You may use words such as because, moreover, however, furthermore, firstly, secondly to indicate the connection between sentences, paragraphs, sections, and subsections. The more you write, the more you explore. After the main body of the paper, the next important section is results and discussion. A strong results section demonstrates the quality of your research work. On the contrary, a weaker results section can lead to a rejection of your paper. You can include figures, tables, experimental setups, block diagrams, simulation windows, snapshots, graphs, bar charts, along with the analytical explanations of your results. All the results must be discussed in terms of numbers along with the general trend of the graphs. Write comprehensive statements and conclusive points of your outcomes. Present tabular results which will help readers to compare easily. Discuss the strengths and limitations of your study. Write the primary implications of your findings. Also write the other findings of your study if they are notable. Use figures with high quality resolution. Maintain the even aspect ratio with excellent finishing, which will demonstrate your working capability to achieve the highest quality. On the contrary, low resolution images with skewed ratio, weaker readability demonstrate that you haven't spent sufficient time on these points and your paper is not ready for the publication. You will have to spend more time on these points. Framing abbreviations is another key point to master your writing skills. Abbreviations are defined for the frequently or repeatedly used terms in the paper. They help to save the word count. Suppose you use the term frequently, such as mobile routing, which can be defined as MR and reused everywhere in the text. Make sure that no undefined abbreviations are used. Double check that all the abbreviations must be defined first when they come first in the text and later they are reused in the subsequent text. This has to be done separately for the abstract and introduction onwards throughout the paper. This means if, let us say, you are using mobile routing, which is coming first in the abstract, and you want to reuse that term, so you can define as mobile routing MR, and then you can reuse that term MR in rest of the abstract. Similarly, if it comes first in the introduction, again you will have to redefine mobile routing, and later in the subsequent text, you can reuse the abbreviation MR. Perform one separate round of proofreading only dedicated to the abbreviation cross verification. The conclusion is the equally important section after the title and abstract. When reviewing the script, many of the reviewers read title, abstract, and conclusion first and decide whether the article is suitable and fitting the scope of the journal or not. Weaker title, abstract, and conclusion often result in the immediate rejection in the sanity check round. Therefore, if you are serious about publishing, you have to spend substantial time in framing your title, abstract, and conclusion. Moreover, the researchers also schemed the papers by reading the title, abstract, and conclusion. Based on these three, they decide whether an article is worth reading further or not. Therefore, be extra careful and mindful when framing the title, abstract, and conclusion. In the conclusion section, you can brief your research contributions with impactful and conclusive points. You can demonstrate the comparative strength of your work with others in short. Discuss your finding in terms of numbers instead of discussing the general trends. Indicate if there are any limitations that can be addressed in the future research. We acknowledge the funding agency here that sponsored the presented research. We can also acknowledge to software company if they have furnished an evaluation version of the software tool for the presented research. We can also acknowledge all the people for their support during the research. If their involvement is sizable, in that case, you may include them as a co-author also. References and citations are essential in acknowledging the existing research reported by the other researchers. Cross-check all figure numbers and their referrals to the text. The numbers referred to the text and figures must be matched. Do the same for all the table numbers. Cross-check all the references that the cited one and listed one both are the same. Follow the standard referencing format for the references which a publisher has recommended. It is always advisable to cite a few papers from the target journal which you are targeting. This is an unsaid expectation which you have to understand proactively. If you want to learn more about finding an IEEE reference formatting, we have created a video tutorial. Please feel free to visit. The link is placed in the description. Creating these prime video tutorials consumes enormous time and energy. If you haven't subscribed to our channel and liked the video yet, please do so. That will boost our motivation to keep up the good work. Plagiarism and similarity index is a mandatory field in the publishing. Ideally, bring the plagiarism or similarity index below 10%. You may use Turnitin or plagiarism checkers to scan the similarity index. To cut down the similarity index, read the existing content, rewrite in your own word, and cite the referred one. Be aware about the copyright infringements on images. In general, plagiarism checkers scan the text for the similarity index, not the images. To avoid the copyright infringements, develop your ideas and draw your own images. If you are reusing any published image, request a publisher to issue the written license or pay the image reuse charges if they are already been published. Please note, this is a mandatory action. There is no scope of not doing that unknowingly. Consequences of the plagiarized content may result in a negative image. Paper may get rejected immediately in the sanity round. It will not enter even the review process. Some of the publishers may impose a penalty or ban on the authors from uploading the future papers. If you want us to create a primer video on plagiarism, please comment and let us know. Also, let us know if there are any other topics that you want us to cover in the comment section. You will have to revise your article multiple times before the final submission. Once the first draft is completed, revise it multiple times. Before you share your manuscript with your supervisor or guide, make sure that you have revised it at your own at least 2 times. During each revision, aim to improve the writing quality by 10 to 15% at least. The revision process is crucial to arrange your paper in a good shape before the final submission. You can check the following. Does it line up with your research problem statement? Is there anything forgotten or missing? Is the first draft written clearly? If not, what can we do to improve the clarity? Are there any confusing or ambiguous paragraphs? Look for the explanation that can clear it. Is it too lengthy, too much into a single paper? Can we cut down something and save it for later? Is it too short and does not meet the expected quality and complexity standards? You may have to do additional work to improve your work quality. Sometimes it is better to improve the work quality and provide some sizable work with higher complexity. It must not look dull. Take a careful look at your first draft and the areas of improvement that you want to. Be mentally prepared to do whatever it takes to improve. Are you restructuring your initial outline? Even if you have followed the initial outline, it may be possible that now you realize that a different structured outline would work better. Be flexible and restructure the outline if it adds value. Cut down all the redundant and irrelevant segments, avoiding the repetitions. Prioritize the most significant changes first. Once the first draft is evaluated, we can start executing the transformations. Start with the most significant changes to the content and composition. This may have a knock-on effect on the rest of the items. Redrafting might involve the following. You may have to reorder the information. You may have to reformulate your arguments to make them more clearer and more substantial. Presenting the information in a different order may work further. You may have to cut down the irrelevant content. And also you may have to add some of the content which adds the value. Be flexible and do whatever is suitable for the paper. Don't feel that you have to make too many changes. It will take a lot of time and efforts to overcome all psychological barriers or pushbacks if you want to publish with high quality journals or conferences. Don't hesitate to restore something back if the new version doesn't work. Editing, proofreading, and peer reviewing are essential to perform your research article a final finishing touch. Rectify if there are any typos and spelling errors. Check if there are any missing words, confused word choices, punctuation errors, missing or excess spaces, capitalization, formatting, and referencing errors. Have we used all the terms which we defined consistently throughout the paper? All the numbers mentioned in the abstract and conclusion must match with the numbers in the text, figure, and tables. All the citations must be matched with the exact numbering with the reference list. References are properly formatted. Check the document formatting, syntax, and grammar. During the editing phase, look at the text closely. Resolve grammatical issues and ensure the clarity. Go through each sentence, adopting a sentence by sentence check approach, and resolve the grammar issues. Raise the standard of your English using multiple writing tools such as Grammarly. Use the advanced vocabulary to describe your work. Combine smaller and primitive sentences into complex ones. Cut down the longer sentences into the medium ones. Clarify if there are any technical ambiguities. Request your colleagues and supervisor to review and comment your paper before you submit to the final journal or a conference. English is not my native language is not a valid argument for the reviewers. Reviewers do not wish to review the papers that are not readable nicely. Poorly written articles often result in the rejection. The following are the characteristics of a dull paper, which will help us to identify if our article is falling in that category. Lack of focus, lack of originality, incremental work, and lacks in novelty. Too short article without matching the expected size. Very lengthy article. Lack of reasoning. Lack of sufficient literature survey. Lack of substantial outcomes. Lack of impactful presentation of scientific data using figures, tables, block diagrams, pseudocodes, drawings, mathematical diagrams, and experimental diagrams. Lack of sufficient numbers in discussions. Lack of analytical explanations discussing the general trends without supplying the numbers, not providing the comparative study with the existing work, and not highlighting how your work is better than others. Use of undefined abbreviations. The referral numbers of the figures and tables are not matching with the text. You may use the LaTeX to avoid this. The cited reference numbers in the text are not matching with the reference list. You may use the LaTeX to avoid that. Once you have submitted a paper to a journal or a conference and received the comments, it is very important to revise your paper as per the reviewer's comments and respond to them. Study each reviewer's comments. When revising, try to address the reviewer's comments thoroughly. Do not respond so quickly. Understand the reviewer's comments and revise the work and address all the comments. Too many rebuttals may lead to rejection of the paper after the submission of the revision. If your paper is rejected, do not lose the heart. It is a part of the publication process. Mostly, first attempt at a paper result in rejection for most of the researchers. Carefully analyze the reviewer's comments and the reason for the rejection. Revise your paper addressing reviewers' comments that will enhance your paper's quality. Also, take a careful and proactive look at your own to check if there is anything missing to enhance the paper quality. If you want to add anything new to strengthen your manuscript, please do so. Upload it to the other journal. If reviewers haven't given any comments and rejected, try it with other journal. Research is a continuous and time consuming process. Never give up. Good luck with publishing. Thank you very much for attending our primer on research paper writing. We will be creating new videos on the research process regularly. Please subscribe to our channel to get the notifications of the latest videos. Please do not forget to like and share the video.